Thank you. So welcome everyone to the mid-May Biocurator Working Group call. Today, Lucy Godley will be giving us a presentation on behalf of the Myeloid Malignancy VCEP. And then for the next meeting, which is on May 22nd, which is the Thursday meeting in our series at noon Eastern, the OMIM team will be coming and telling us about updates at OMIM. And so with that, will turn it over to you, Lucy, and thanks for coming to present.
Well, thanks for inviting us. I'm here not just by myself, but David Wu is my co-chair of the Myeloid Malignancy Variant Creation Expert Panel. So David's here. And then Taylor is our project manager. Taylor Walker is here. And Zach Huttig, who is our lead biocurator, is here as well. And I just want to thank all of them for all the help with the group, and especially Zach, who put together these slides for me. Zach maybe will want to speak at some point, as well as maybe Taylor and David as well. But Zach thought there were some unique parts to the way we organize the biocurators in the Myeloid Malignancy Variant Creation Expert Panel. So I'll try to highlight that, and hopefully you can see the slides now. The Myeloid Malignancy Variant Creation Expert Panel develops rules to curate to curate variants that are in genes that confer risk to myeloid malignancies. And the first gene that we worked on was RUNX1. It is right now the only gene for which our curation rules are approved, but we have final rules at the SVI for DDX41, and then we'll be finishing up rules for GATA2. Those are the next genes that are on the way. And as you can see here in the first bullet point, our VCEP has curated all of the RUNX1 variants in ClinVar. This is about 1,600 variants. And as far as I understand, we're the first VCEP to clear 1,000 variants for any gene and to clear ClinVar, essentially. And I really want to thank Zach and Taylor and David for all the organization that has gone into that. I guess it has to do with the way we organize the biocurators, like how did we do it? And so we'll share that with you. And then we also want to make the point that all the VUSs that are a couple years old have also all been recurated. So we think we're up to date on RUNX1. And Zach, who's our lead biocurator right now, he leads a group of almost 30 biocurators. So I do think that is part of our success, that we have so many people around the world who are doing this work. And how did we get such a robust group? I'm not really sure how that happened, but a lot of people are interested. I think we show a lot of respect to the people who are in the group. When we have our meetings, everybody speaks up with equal voice. And when we publish, anybody who's interested in publishing can contribute to the manuscripts. And so I think people feel very engaged and they get something back from doing this. So when Zach took the job, he really kind of looked at all the RUNX1 variants that were in ClinVar and kind of made a calculation of how many do we have to clear per person per month to, make this goal. And he was very systematic in making these assignments. And what you can see here in the diagram is that, let me go back. I have the laser pointer. So here we pull out the RUNX1 variants from the ClinVar, and then we assign them. It ends up being maybe 5 or so variants per biocurator per month. So it wasn't too overwhelming. But I have to say, Zach did an awful lot by himself. And then when the biocurator does the curation, they assign the curation either red, yellow, or green. Green means it's super obvious and everybody's going to agree with it. And the green variants, essentially, Zach just meets with me or David, and we are a second set of eyes and we approve it. If it's yellow, then we discuss it in our biocurator meetings. So we have about once a month, we have a meeting just of the biocurators where we discuss these yellow variants or any questions that people have. And then we also have this level called red, although I have to confess, we really don't use it very much. This would be a variant that's really, really problematic, and we bring it to the whole MMVCEP meeting. Our MMVCEP meets twice a month. It's every other week. We alternate the time between noon Central Time and 4 p.m. Central Time to accommodate people around the world. And I really can't remember the last time we brought up a RUNX1 curation. I think that in part reflects how long we've been doing the RUNX1 curations for. And then once the curations go through the second line review with me or David or one of the other experts, then we publish them, quote unquote, into ClinVar with our FDA designation. And so this really allows us to discuss the difficult variants as a group, and people learn from that. So more and more variants get labeled green rather than yellow. And we have very few red variants at this point. Now, the VUSs are really difficult, right? Because about half of our variants get curated as VUS. And those are problematic, as you all appreciate, because they don't give you a definitive, not clinically actionable or definitively clinically actionable position. And so we have really tried to address this high rate of VUS. And in our last grant, that was the area that we highlighted as a point of innovation, because no offense to the ACMG, I don't feel like you can be all that creative with the rules. The rules are what they are and you have to follow them. So what we said was a point of innovation is the way we would use data to push variants out of VUS category. And the most important way to push a VUS, in my opinion, is pushing it into likely pathogenic range. Because if it's VUS, you don't act on it clinically. So it's kind of the same as benign, likely benign. Where you change how you address the individual is if you now call them likely pathogenic, right? So Zach did a lot of work to find the VUSs that were very close to likely pathogenic, and we found 34 of those. So 34 out of the 850. So what is that, about 5%? And then what we would need to push these into likely pathogenic variant is essentially more segregation data, more probands, more segregation data, or functional data. The functional data is very hard because the only assay that we can use according to our rules right now is a transactivation assay that requires a lot of positive and negative controls. And there just aren't clinical labs that are doing that. And there aren't that many research labs around the world that are doing that either. So the way we can really push things is through segregation. And so the way Zach calls this the VUS reduction plan, which I really like. So the way we are doing this and the way we said there was some innovation was to work with two organizations that are patient-facing or, people-facing. One is the RUNX1 Research Program. This is a philanthropic nonprofit that has collected a lot of people around the world with germline deleterious RUNX1 variants. But sometimes people come to them with VUSs and they want to be part of the group and they know they have a VUS. And so the RUNX1 Research Program does have access to some people who have these variants. And then at the NIH, I think you'll probably all know that several years ago, maybe about 5 years ago, Paul Liu started a RUNX1, let's call it continuity clinic, where people and families come for complete assessment. It's usually over a 2 or 3 day period. They get a bone marrow biopsy, physical exam, lots of lab work, and then a lot of the samples go into Paul's research lab. And so the NIH clinical study also has a lot of people. I thought there would be 100% concordance between the RUNX1 Research Program and NIH. And actually, I was surprised that there isn't more concordance. So essentially what we did is we talked with both the RRP and the NIH and gave them these hot VUSs, if you will, and said, do you have any families with these VUSs? And we have also worked with another, or started really to work with this organization called Connect My Variant, which was started by Brian Schertz when he was with David at University of Washington. And Connect My Variant is a patient-facing organization or individual family-facing organization to help people essentially address cascade testing within their families. So we have kind of brought the RRP and the NIH together with Connect My Variant, and it's all focused on trying to get more segregations, either finding more probands or more segregations, because then we can push these VUSs into likely path. And all of the data so far have been shared with our VCEP. And moving forward, if people need research-based testing, we'll be able to provide that. So far, we've been able to move 2 of those 35 variants up into likely pathogenic range using the segregation data. And essentially, we're working with RRP and the NIH and Connect My Variant to try to push others into likely pathogenic range. So I'm going to stop there and see if anybody has any questions, comments. Zach, David, Taylor, anything else I missed or you think is important to highlight?
Not that I can think of, but I also want to say thank you, Lucy, for your leadership. I think your vigor and energy really pushes the group forward. So,
I just
Um,
wanted to explore the question of VUSs a little bit more. I'm sorry, Zach, I didn't mean to interrupt you, or David, sorry. Go ahead first, and then I'll
no,
ask
no,
my
go ahead. I
VUS
think it's
question.
the same question. Go ahead.
So I know for VUSs, we're always trying to push them more towards certainty. Have you guys looked into any way that you could push some like cold VUSs, essentially? I know that you went towards like hot VUSs, but of course, there's the other side of the spectrum. Are there any VUSs that, in any logical way, that you could push more towards likely benign? And I guess, like you have started to explore a little bit, like substratifying your VUS as a VUS mid, VUS high, and VUS low. I don't know if that's something that you've thought about exploring as we move on to the SVC V4 guidelines with the stratified VUSs. But I'd love to hear that because 850 is a lot. That's like really daunting. And as you know, that's like the highest rate of recuration that you need to have for per requirements, like for ClinGen. So love to get your thoughts.
So yeah, we're doing this in 2 ways, I think. One of them is where we have submitted version 3 rules, which kind of fixed a few things with some of our like synonymous variants, for example. So we're going to look to see, I think there's about 250 or 300 variants, if I'm remembering correctly, that will be re-curated as likely benign once those are officially released. So it's going to be a huge reduction right off the bat.
Oh, yeah, that's
But
great.
then, yeah, so we were also looking to maybe like segregation, non-segregation data to use BS3, or sorry, BS3, I think, to apply with these colder VUSs so that we can maybe push them into likely benign or benign territory. And so I think that's something that we're looking at for with Connect My Variant too. But kind of the next step maybe, and we were kind of looking to pick like the low hanging fruit of these hotter VUSs first, especially considering that they're maybe more relevant clinically.
The comment that I might add is that Zach has done a really good job to help us look across the whole, protein at the different amino acids, the alternate amino acids to kind of compute what is the known data out there and what is where are we at in terms of data for classifying that variant. And that's really helped us to identify which ones are close to the edge where we can do targeted efforts for either functional testing or segregation studies. We got the question yesterday from Dr. Sharon Plon when we were doing our annual updates at the executive committee meeting, she was wondering how we were going to keep up with the curations. And in fact, it is a high number when you do have these VUSs. But the fact of the matter is the only way to push these forward is going to be data. And it'll be data either in the form of a MAVE, a multiplexed assessment of variant effect, some sort of laboratory high-scale throughput testing, or there will be collaborative studies between groups that share pedigree segregation data. And so I think we've done a good job to kind of identify those as opportunities and look for partners to help us collect that data. The VUSs, until we get more data, will remain as VUSs. And so I think we feel pretty comfortable that we will catch the new data when it does come out. People will reach out to our group. And so in that case, we can then address them rather quickly towards moving them to more definitive classification if possible.
Great, thanks, David. Emily, I know you asked in the chat about in silico scores. Is that what you wanted to verbally ask when raising your hand, or go ahead and ask it too?
Yeah, because so I'm the coordinator for a portion of the Insight VCEP, and but I'm also on the SVI, so we're doing right now a big in silico calibration and look at if the in silico scores can push any of our VUSs from VUS into a clinically actionable category. So I was wondering if you guys have done the big like in silico runs of all your missense variants.
Zach, do you want to comment as to what we've done?
Yeah, so when we were looking at all the variants gene-wide, we actually did use a few different NSOCO tools. And, obviously we use the Rebel scores for our actual curations, but we also looked at alpha missense for all our missense variants. And kind of we stratified, we applied like a lot of static codes, all the static codes we could essentially. And then a way that we were looking for these variants that might be upgraded using some patient data or functional data is we actually used alpha missense scores as like a pseudo functional test and applied like PS3 to those to see what the resulting classification would be. And then we tested that with using fake like segregation data and proband data to see if we could push any of these scores and see exactly which variants are kind of on that border and which variants could benefit from additional patient or functional data. And so that's how we identified a lot of those hotter VUSs.
Okay, I would, as like someone that we've worked with the Alpha Missense team and we're doing a lot of work on SVI, I would use caution by using alpha missense in that way, because it might be, we found that in a couple genes in certain areas, it behaves really poorly. So there are other programs like in the Pejver et al. 2022 paper, it's MutePred2, VES4, and Bayes-Dell that I would recommend you do, just not it. Alpha missense can have instances of behaving poorly that we found. So we don't use it as we don't really use it as our hallmark for our missense variants in those genes. And if you want to email me for more information, I'd be happy to talk to you offline about it too.
Yeah, we did do like an ROC analysis, and we had a healthy amount of known pathogenic and benign variants. So we did compare that and had been found, high rate of specificity, everything for alpha missense with RUNX1 specifically. But we saw that maybe that's not the case for DX41, other gene that we're looking at, for example. So yeah, we're definitely aware of some issues with that. Thank you.
Any other questions, either in the chat or feel free to raise your hand and unmute. Okay. If not, think we can give everyone some time back. Thank you for presenting your work today, guys. It's really impressive the number of variants you've done.
Thank you so much for having us. Have a
Thanks,
great day.
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.